I've got a series of questions now for both of you, and we'll take turns in who gets to answer first. Phil, we'll start with you this time. What is the role of a city council member? Now, I know, for example, as I said before, council controls the city's purse strings. No money can be spent that lawmakers don't approve in some way. You approve appointments to boards, you consider zoning issues, tax abatements, but what do you think is a city council member's most important role, and how would you best fulfill that role as an at-large council member?
Well, I think number one is being involved in the community and knowing kind of how as legislation comes before council, kind of knowing, I might have my own particular feeling on legislation, but it's knowing kind of what your constituents, what the citizens of the city of Mansfield would like to see happen. And one thing, as you said, the budget, and granted it is the mayor's budget, but in all of my 16 years prior to this last 2 years on council, when it came time for the budget, we had budget hearings, and lots of times, and we didn't pass the budget on the first read. We had at least 2 or 3 reads. We brought in the different department heads to have them explain where the monies in their department was going, question them on different things, and it hasn't happened the last couple years, and that was it has been a concern of mine. And I also checked with previous council members prior to that, and it's pretty much always been that all council that it comes before council to more than one read on budget, that they discuss it and hash it out before it's just approved by council. So I think, as you touched on a lot of them, we approve all the legislation that comes before the city, but there's a lot of things that do come before.
All right, thanks, Phil. Shari, same question for you about fulfilling your role, and what do you think the most important role is as a council at-large member?
Okay, so this is interesting to me because coming on council, you know, I was on Mansfield Charter Review and on City Planning Commission, but council's a whole nother thing. Can you guys hear me okay? I hate bending over. I feel like I'm hunched over. So the one thing I learned right away is that it's so much more than that first and third Tuesday. It is committee meetings. It is getting out in the community. It is interacting with the citizens. It's attending ribbon cuttings. It's attending community events. It's doing all these things. It's going to neighborhood watches. So one of the things that I did right away was I made sure that I was attending my committee meetings. You know, I go to them, I show up to them, they're informative, and I think that that's a part that a lot of people don't know. I'm not going to echo what Phil said about, we all know what legislation is. Obviously, the budget's a huge thing for us. That's something we have to look at. You know, we expect the finance director and the mayor to inform us on things, if our budget, how's the projections looking and things like that, and it helps us to make better informed decisions. Being in the city too, you know, I left for Madison when I was in 7th grade. My dad got tired of finding heroin needles in our little alleyway there in East Luther Place. So I lived in the city for about 50 years total, and during that time, you realize that there's little insulated communities. What is important in the south end of town is not important sometimes to somebody in the north end of town. Being in community policing and in these watch meetings, I've had that opportunity to sit down and listen and see those differences and recognize that even though something that may be important to Shari over here on Wandy Way, but over here for John Smith, it may not be. And I think that as a council member, we need to take all those things into consideration. I encourage that interaction. I love that we've had people that already this year show up. We've had a pretty packed
those
council chamber.
Those are good.
Yeah, and I love that. You know, some people's like, oh my gosh, here we go. And for me, I want to hear from the citizens. I want to know what's going on. I may not agree with you. You may not agree with me. But in the end, you have to make the decision that is best as a whole, as a collective. And I think that's so important. So that to me, it's so much more than showing up at a meeting and taking a vote. It's being present, and it always drove me nuts when elected officials only show up at the year of the election. You know, you need to be engaged and you need to be out there, and to me, that's what the city council's about as well.
All right, thank you, Shari. We will start with you on this next one. Mayor Jody Perry has said her priorities in 2024 and 2025 are growth, infrastructure, and safety. What would be your 3 specific priorities if you're elected, and how will you work as a member of council to achieve them?
Thank you, Carl. So for me, I retaining businesses. I have said this before I was on council, as a citizen here in this city. It has drove me nuts that we have lost viable businesses that have been here for years. And for those of you that may not know or have not been paying attention, over the last 10 to 15 years, we have lost Aldi's, Dunham's, TJ Maxx, Hobby Lobby, Spitzer's, Coal Tool and Die, Interstate Batteries. Those are the ones off the top of my head I can think of. We not only lost an income stream, they didn't close up, folks. They left and went to Ontario, okay? And probably a lot of reasons. So we got to figure out how are we going to keep what we have here, because we have some really good local businesses. The third part of that is, for me, is I hate the blight. I hate the blight. I think that the last administration, it was kind of a running joke, that they ran around and we had all these vacant houses, now we have all these vacant lots. Okay, you drive by, yep, they tore this down, they tore that down. In my neighborhood, I've been there going on 26 years. There were 2 houses that were condemned, one right across from my driveway and one just down the road, 3 houses down. Both of those were mental health issues that helped lead to that. So that's another part that falls into there, and I'm not going to get on that. But we have to take care of this blight. And codes and permits, when I came on in 1994, we had 4 codes officers, and every month a community policing officer would ride with a code officer and go around and address things in the city and tell people, look, get this cleaned up, get rid of these cars, do this, do that. Any of us in this room, what will drive you nuts? A junky old RV or something in a yard next to your nicely manicured yard that you've taken care of, and next door is this train wreck going on. And those are things that we have to address to me. Quality of life issues, those are important to me. When it comes to growth, I am big on that. That goes with retaining, but you also have to grow. And I feel that council in the last couple years especially has done a really good job in voting and passing legislation that has helped our infrastructure. We just voted this year on some infrastructure out the airport to enhance that. And the reason being is that we are getting ahead of the curve. And that's smart, because a business that says, hey, we want to come here, but you know what? It's going to take us 3 years to get the sewer, the water, and everything else we need. So we're going to go over here because they have it. By being proactive like that out the airport and other areas, we are setting ourselves up for success. And I commend the past and the current administration for doing that, because that's important. As far as safety, those are things that's always there. That's something for me, but that's it. Those are the 3. So growth, retaining, and the blight.
All right. Thank you, Shari. Phil, same question for you. What are going to be your priorities if you're elected at large in council for next year?
Well, I've said for a long time, what we're doing in downtown is great, but we have to look, and I don't know if this kind of ties in with the blight, but when you come in 13 from the north and from the south, and you're coming in through town, what are you seeing? It's sometimes not a very pretty picture. And I've said since we passed the license plate fee for downtown, that's great. And I know we need to work on downtown, and I'm sure this project downtown will be fantastic and hopefully will bring a lot of businesses down. But we have to also look on what's on the outside. And I don't know if that kind of goes along with the blight, but when people are coming in through town, I've talked to friends of mine that live in Columbus and other places, and they go, Phil, when I come into town, it doesn't look pretty. It just doesn't look inviting. So I think we need to also maybe spread our work outside of the downtown area. One thing also I believe, and I think I said in my questionnaire, that we need to attract jobs to keep our young people here. So much we see our young people graduating from the senior high and local schools, and they're going to college, and they're not coming back. And I know Mayor Perry is doing a lot better at doing things, but it was brought to my attention about the coal tool and die. The previous administration, coal Coal Tool and Die people went to the mayor and went to economic development and said, we're looking for other places to, someplace else to build. Can you help us? Nothing was done. Nothing was done. And then when they put up the for sale sign at their old location, that's when the administration came to them and said, oh, what can we do? Well, it's too late. We already bought our location in Ontario. So, and I think some of the, granted, it's sad that we've lost some of our small businesses or the businesses that have went out to Ontario, but it's also some of our demographics that I'm sure in their business plan, they have to serve a certain area where the income is so high and meets different priorities. And unfortunately, sadly, we've lost those to outside areas.
All right, thanks, Phil. Now we're going to start with you this time, Phil. I covered my first Mansfield City Council meeting in 1990. God, am I old. In fact, when I started covering it again, a former council member looked at me and said, well, you must be new to this. And I turned and I pointed to the picture of O.C. Hill on the back wall. And I said, well, the first time I covered this, he's sitting where you were. So no, it's not new. I've seen a lot of different councils. I've seen a lot of different local lawmakers over the years. In your opinion, and again, Phil, we're going to start with you, what does City Council do well? What could it do better? And what do you think you will push for council to do differently if you're elected?
I think in the past, and even in now, we've done well with the budget. You know, speaking of the budget, I guess one thing that I'm always concerned about that is, you know, I was on council when the city went into fiscal emergency. You know, I was elected in 2007, 2008, we went into fiscal emergency. And I sat on those state boards. I was part of the decisions, some of them not too popular, you know, cutting employees in the city building, having to turn off city streetlights. You know, those things were not popular, but we had to do them to balance the budget. So to me, one of the big things, as you can maybe tell, is the budget process. I think we need to be involved in the communities. I mean, you have to know what the citizens want, what you're dealing with, what they're dealing with, and to bring things to the city council.
All right, thank you, Phil. Shari, same question for you. What do you think council could do better? What do you like, and what will you push for it to do differently?
Well, the one thing I like and struck me initially when I came on council was the fact that we seem right now to work very well together. And I appreciate that. I have I have done security for council meetings in the past. I have attended council meetings in the past, and I've seen some very contentious things going on. And, you know, sometimes just because you're the loudest voice in the room doesn't mean that you're the right voice in the room. Amen. And I think that we've done a very good job with that. I think I will echo somewhat what Phil has said. Our budget absolutely is always important. It has to be balanced. I appreciate the fact that I feel since my time on there, they have been very transparent, that Director Converse has been with where things are going, where we're at. I think that as council members that you need to question that. You know, it's easy to get this, if you would see the budget, it's like this thick, right, Phil? So, you know, you need to take the time to go through that. It's easy to say, yeah. I'll let this person do it or that person, but you would be surprised at what little things you might catch, and it's like, well, you know, why does the police department need a TV for down in the old range? And this is a true story. And it was caught at a level and in the finance office at the time, and they questioned that. And they told Chief, yeah, you don't really need that right now. Now, whether or not, you know, the chief felt he needed that, it doesn't matter, but there was an issue or a reason for that, not faulting that per se, but at that point in time, that was not important. And sometimes it's all those little things. If you think about your life, it's not necessarily that one big moment that matters, it's all those little moments combined, and that's what we have to watch for, and I think that's important for us as council to do that. I would hope that we would continue to see community engagement. I would hope that we would continue to talk as we are now and as we've continued to. And most importantly, I would hope that we would be given more time when something comes up that might be controversial or contentious, that we have a chance to really meet with the citizens that it affects and the other council members and those departments and talk about it. You know, conversations are important today.
Very.
And I think that that's what we need to have. And that's something I'm big on. And that's collaboration and working together with all the stakeholders. So even though we may not agree, you have to listen, and I appreciate it.
All right, let's close with this, and Shari will give you a first stab at this. There's been a lot of heated discussion the last couple of weeks about development of the municipal parking lot downtown. So,
Really?
some of that heat dissipated Tuesday.
Old news, Carl, fake
Yeah.
news.
Wow. Some of that heat dissipated Tuesday when Park National Bank announced it was going to pull out of a plan to build a new regional headquarters on half of that lot, but that lot's still there. There's still been discussions about future development. So looking forward, do you want to see that parking lot developed in the future? And if so, what kind of development would you be in favor of? And Shari, we'll let you go first.
So first of all, kudos to Park National for stepping up and making the decision they made. Also kudos to them for wanting to invest in our community. You're talking about a business that has been here a long time, and I appreciated that. I was actually very excited when I heard that, hey, you know, this is something that might happen. And at the same time, I understand the fears about parking downtown. Trust me, when I left the traffic section as a sergeant in 2010, I never thought I'd have to deal with a parking issue again, okay? Wrong, all right? Parking downtown has always been a hot topic. I think I was a little disappointed that the communication with maybe Mansfield Rising in 2018 when this was discovered that this was a prime location. And I don't know, maybe there was communication. It's something I haven't had a chance to find out yet. But it seems to me that, okay, we have this plan. It was in there. It was said this is our prime spot, but yet nothing was expressed by anyone, to my knowledge at that time. I don't know if anybody else has that. But again, as you move forward, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse, I mean, it is what it is, I recognized as well the citizens' concerns. I can also tell you that as far as the development there, it would have to be something that is right, and it has to be that fit.
Yeah.
I said in council that night that I felt that if we would sit down and talk, and really actually instead of getting a perception and running with it, that if we would sit down and talk about it, that maybe there was a path here. And I'm still hopeful that we do have that regional office built here in our city. That would be very nice by Park National. But as far as that area, you know, clearly, I think that it's definitely endeared a lot more than what myself and many other council people have thought. And there's definitely has to be a conversation with everyone involved. And that's when we're talking about local community stakeholders in that area. And we have to have, it has to be the right development. And I guarantee you, if it does come up and it comes up again and they decide that, hey, we got this, you know, Amazon wants to go there and they want us to build a 10-story building, whatever it is, on this little lot, we have to have all the people at the table and we have to make an informed decision on it. And it has to be the right one. And I guarantee you, we're still not going to please everyone, okay? No. And that's the thing. Phil alluded to difficult decisions during fiscal emergency. Council's about that too, about difficult decisions. So, I mean, is that anything else on that I'm missing?
I think that's fine. Phil, same question for you, sir.
Well, I just think we have to be very careful what we would do with that parking. And because I think we have to keep it as parking. Now, if down the road, you know, we look at possibly a parking garage with businesses on the lower level or something along those lines where we're not just totally displacing all those parking places, then maybe we can explore that. But I think just to do away with half of the parking out of that that lot down there on the corner of 4th and Main. We can't do that. And I too hope that, Park National finds another location within the city. Maybe it's not downtown in the Carousel District, but someplace where they can expand their business and have the regional offices here within the city of Mansfield. I've got one that maybe I'd be welcome to suggest to them, but I'll keep that to myself and maybe talk to Chris Heiner about it. But I think we have to be careful with what we did, and I think maybe in some ways we didn't get all the players together, and in some ways maybe we got the cart before the horse, before some of this was released to the public and all the stakeholders weren't informed.
Very good. I do have 127 more questions for the both of you, but when I look at the time, we will have to skip 127 of those. But
Thank you.
thank you both, Shari, Phil. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you, Carl. Thanks,
you.
everyone.